Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Today I want to start a new series of videos, there'll be two in this series, on consisting locomotives. Basically in the first video we're going to talk about the different types of consisting, what consisting is, and what is available in DCC to be able to do that on your model railroad. And in the second video that will follow on Thursday of this week, I will go ahead and show you how you can set up consist using your throttle and also how to do it using Decoder Pro. So stick around and we'll get started on this very important topic with respect to operating your model railroad. Before we do get started though, I want to remind you one more time about hitting that little red subscribe button on the lower right hand side of the screen here and subscribe to the DCC Guide channel. That way you'll be notified by YouTube every time that I upload a new video to the DCC Guide channel. I want to point out that this added feature doesn't cost you a thing. It's free. So go ahead, subscribe to the channel. We're getting close to 1,000 now, so thanks a lot. You can be the one that would help put me over the top before the end of 2019. So thanks a lot. Let's get started. Okay, so first, what is consisting? Well, consisting is a procedure that the railroads use to be able to control more than one locomotive at a time. Typically, if you are out watching locomotives on railroads near you or watching videos here on YouTube, you've probably seen that the real railroads, they will typically run 2, 3, 4, 7, out west, some of these 8 locomotives at a time at the front of a freight train. And in order to be able to do that, the locomotive engineer in the cab of the lead locomotive needs to be able to control the throttle and the brakes and the sand and all of those things on the locomotives trailing behind him. And there are ways to do that. They use electrical and pneumatic connections between the different locomotives, and you've seen those cables that go between the pilots of the locomotives, and that's what they're for. They allow the locomotive engineer in the first locomotive to control what's going on in the whole string of locomotives that follow behind him. Now in steam days, they didn't have that electromechanical type of connection, so what they used was an engineer and a fireman in the cab of each locomotive, and you might have 2 up at the front, double heading, or you might have one pulling and one pushing on the rear. On rare occasions, you actually might have seen one in the middle of a very long train as well. You can replicate that consisting practice, be it diesel or steam, using DCC. So let me tell you the 3 different ways that you can do it with DCC. Okay? Now the first method is called basic consisting, and it's as simple as can be. All you have to do is program the decoder in each one of the locomotives in your consist to the same address. You can use a 2-digit address, you can use your 4-digit address, whatever. Just make sure that you reprogram the trailing locomotive or locomotives to the same address as that in the decoder of your lead locomotive. And that way, when you change the throttle setting on your handheld throttle, that change in throttle will be transmitted to the decoders in both locomotives simultaneously. And that is one of the big features and pros of using this. It's infallible. It goes to the same address in each decoder in each locomotive. Okay, they're both getting the same instructions. For that reason, there are no delays. Okay, they will respond immediately. You turn on the lights, their headlights are both going to come on. You might not want it, but they will. Throttle responses, identical, immediate. So it is an infallible method with no delays at all in response time. Also, if you go ahead and program in a address into both locomotives, okay, Because it is stored in the decoder in each locomotive, it's completely portable. You can pick up your consist, put it in your carrying case, take it to the club or your friend's layout, put it on his tracks or those tracks, and immediately select one address and you're off and running. That's how straightforward and easy it is. So it is completely portable from your layout to someone else's. Okay? You do not have to remake the consist when you get there. Now, the one thing about this though, if you remember, as I told you about programming CV29 in a previous video, and I'll add a link above here to that, when you set up a locomotive, you specify the normal direction of travel. So for this F3A unit, this is the normal forward, and this is the normal reverse direction of travel. And it's the same with the B unit. You can tell because it's got dynamic brakes up here on the top, and that's the front end. So this would be the forward direction of travel. I think it also probably has a little F here, but you can't see it, it's so small. If you wanted this locomotive to run, like that, then that's going to be fine because that's normal forward and that's normal forward. But what if you want it to, or if it's set up to run backwards? Okay, like that. Then you would need to go in and change CV29 in this locomotive to set up the normal direction of travel as reversed. So that's one of the things you need to be aware of. For that reason, it takes a little advanced planning when you start to make up a consist to decide which way you want them to face and make the necessary programming changes. Another thing about this is basic consists save or conserve memory in your command station. And the reason for that is you're only using one address for all of the locomotives in your consist. You could have 5 locomotives in the consist and it only takes up one memory slot. Now, that's less of a problem in modern command stations than it was previously. In some older command stations and beginner command stations, you only had maybe 10 slots. So if you had 2 5 locomotive consists, that would use up all of your slots. However, with basic consisting, it would only use up 2 slots, 1 for each consist. So it conserves memory from that perspective, but also it means that it cuts down on the overhead processing that the command station has to do in order to control all of those locomotives. Because the command station is just sending commands out to 1 locomotive address per consist, not 5. So for that standpoint, it's a much more efficient way to use memory. There are some downsides though. As I pointed out a minute ago, it is directionally dependent. You do have to make sure that you set up the locomotive to go forward when you want it to go forward. Also, from a portability perspective, when you pick up that set of locomotives and take them to the other layout that you're going to operate on, you have to make sure that you put them back together in the same order that you had them in when you made up that consist. Otherwise, they'll try to go in different directions. So that's one of the downsides to basic consisting. And from that standpoint, it's a little inflexible. You don't have the flexibility of quickly making changes to the consists. And once you set them up, it means that you're more likely to just want to leave them that way all the time. The other thing is, because it takes programming steps in order to make these changes, it's not really quick or easy as some other methods are. Okay, so those are there's not a lot of downsides. It's a pretty good method to go with. The second method is called universal or command station assisted. Now let me point out too that different manufacturers use different names for these things. Universal consisting is a Digitrax name, but command station assisted is the more common generic name for it. Okay. As the name implies, the information for the consist is stored in the command station. So if you have 5 locomotives in your consist, then the address of each is stored in the command station itself. So those 5 memory slots are always going to be used up if you've got a 5 locomotive consist. So from that standpoint, it's not as efficient at conserving overhead memory or slots. It is easy to set up, and you can do it fairly quickly with your throttle, as I will show you in the next video. It's a fairly straightforward process to just enter the lead locomotive's address and then add additional locomotives to that. And for that reason, it's easy, it's quick, and it's flexible. Because when you set up the consist, you can specify whether or not each locomotive is facing in the forward direction or in the reverse direction. So you don't have to worry about making those changes to CV29 in order to get them all going in the right way. And from that standpoint, it is a bit easier as well. It also gives you access to all of the functions, because the main functions are going to be sent to the lead locomotive, the headlight, the horn, the bell, that kind of thing. But you can also access those individual functions by bringing up the address to that other locomotive and turning the lights on or off, hitting the whistle or the bell. But that means you pretty much need to use a throttle that has 2 control buttons on it, or a way to switch between locomotives very quickly. So from that standpoint, it does have its limitations. You can access the functions, but it's not something that is very quick and easy to do. The horn and the bell will only sound out, though, normally in the lead locomotive. So if you get to the end of a branch line and reverse the direction of travel, then the horn and the bell are still only going to sound in the locomotive that was at the lead, which will now be at the end of the consist. I hope that makes sense. Now that might be different with some other types of command stations. Also, because the addresses in the consist are stored in the command station, then your consist is not portable. You can't just pick up the locomotives and take them to another layout, set them on the track, and move off. You have to recreate the consist again and have it stored in that command station. As I said earlier, it uses some more processing power, and because of that, everything has to go through the command station. Every command has to be processed and then sent out to each decoder in each locomotive. Consequently, there can be delays in the response. As a test on one occasion, I lined up 5 locomotives on the track, turned the headlights on in all of them, and then put them in reverse so that the headlights would go out. It had auto-reversing headlights. And then I went ahead and hit the reverse button so that they were all going forward now. The headlight in the lead locomotive came on. Then, after that, the second locomotive, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. There was a noticeable delay in the processing time and in the response of each locomotive. And this is something that can happen, and that was just 5 locomotives on a layout by themselves. So you get on a busy layout, a club layout, during an operating session, you might experience delays in changes to throttle settings, for example. So you can have noticeable delays with universal or command station assisted consisting. Okay, finally, the last method that I want to talk about is advanced consisting. And advanced consisting is probably the best of both worlds, okay? And I say it's the best of both worlds because, like basic consisting, the address for the consist is stored in the decoder of each locomotive in the consist. The downside is they can only be 2-digit addresses. Actually, it's 3-digit addresses because it's converted to hex in the command station and stored as 2 digits. Consequently, you're limited to numbers 1 through 127. Okay? So you can't use the lead locomotive. You can use the last 2 numbers, like this one is 4189. You could give it a consist address of 89 and use that for all the other consist addresses in the other locomotives. And that works fine, and that's one way to do it. The folks at NCE have their command station set up to more or less seamlessly use advanced consisting like universal consisting. So it's fairly easy to set it up and seamless. Also, because the 2-digit consist address is stored in the decoder, they are completely portable. Just like basic consisting, you can pick them up, take them somewhere else, plop them on the track, and you're off and running again. And there are no delays. That's another important distinction between it and universal, the old universal, is that you won't have any delays because, again, all the locomotives are responding to the same command sent to the same consist address. So from that standpoint, there's another pro in favor of it. One of the most powerful aspects of advanced programming, each function can be set up to either respond to the command sent to the consist address or just to the locomotive address. And what this allows you to do then is you can set it up so that the lead locomotive responds to horn or bell commands, whereas the other locomotives do not. So those are a couple of the important things, or a few of the important aspects of using our advanced consist. And I will go ahead and, like I said, I'll show you in the next video how to do basic consist, how to do universal consisting, and finally how to do advanced consisting. Okay, I hope that gives you a better understanding of what consisting is and how you can go about doing it on your model railroad. It adds a lot to the operational capabilities of your trains, and I think you'll enjoy using some of these different techniques. So, stick around for the next video in the series later in the week.